I think we'll get started. So I'm really excited about this one, and can't wait for you guys to all dive into this content. We're going to talk about the future of hormone testing. And this webinar is in partnership with Fullscript and EndoAxis, and it's applying technology with EndoAxis and the Dutch test for enhanced clinical outcomes. So often in healthcare, you hear about new technology or changing technology. And for us practitioners, that's more often a burden on our time and our delivery of care to patients. But Fullscript as a platform is really developed to optimize workflow efficiency. And I'm really excited for Liz and Guy to talk about EndoAxis, because their technology is also advancing your knowledge, advancing your work with patients, but also optimizing your workflow. So I want to introduce Dr. Liz Bartman, who's Director of Clinical Sciences at EndoAxis, Dr. Guy Citrin, who's the Chief Medical Officer at EndoAxis. I'm Jeff Glad. I'm the Chief Medical Officer at Fullscript. And as a little bit of housekeeping, this webinar is being recorded following completion. You'll find it in the next couple of days on fullscript.com/webinars. We encourage everyone to get involved in the webinar by asking questions as they come about. While we won't be answering them during the flow of the conversation, we are going to reserve the last 10 to 15 minutes to really walk through any questions that you may have, and Liz and Guy are prepared to be able to answer those questions for you. I, as a practitioner, I still practice here in Indiana. I regularly recommend the Dutch test for patients. And I've always told my patients before reviewing it that this is a complicated test. And I'm going to give you probably 50% of what's available in this test. And, I've done several hundred of them. Now, using EndoAxis, I'm able to now allow this platform to help me understand the entire breadth of the patient's Dutch test. And as you'll hear from Liz and Guy, they've developed a number of evidence-based ingredients to pair with the findings of that Dutch test. And so I'm excited to hand this off to Liz, and then Guy's going to walk through some case studies, and I'll come back at the end. So Liz, why don't you get started talking about what is EndoAxis?
Absolutely. Thank you so much. I'm very excited to be joining everyone today to introduce EndoAxis as a platform and as a supplement. As we dive into the kind of who and what of EndoAxis, I want to start with why. Why did we develop this program? And we really are built out of a desire to have a quick, effective way to assess hormone health and that metabolic story. The concept was, can we create an algorithm that can accurately and consistently identify those metabolic issues at the root of hormone dysfunction? And we're using the Dutch test to analyze that story. For those who don't know, the Dutch stands for Dried Urine Testing for Comprehensive Hormones. It's through a company called Precision Analytical. And it really helps to identify what I had mentioned before, that metabolic story. And then our second goal was to curate a custom series of products that are really targeting the why of the hormone imbalance, to kind of redo how hormone supplements are created and focus on that metabolic enzymatic story versus just a symptom or a primary, like one single hormone concern. And can we also make this process easy and accurate for providers? And the short answer is yes, we have come up with an EndoAxis system. So what is EndoAxis? Well, we are just that. We are a streamlined technology that allows providers to upload their Dutch test and get a full hormone synopsis with recommended targeted supplements. How does it work? Right now, we are incorporating the Dutch Complete or the Dutch Plus for male and female patients. You upload your report and you fill out a symptom tracker. You answer a few questions because we do need to know about cycle status, pregnancy, lactation, cancer history, and bioidentical hormones. So we really want to understand not just what is that metabolic story telling us, but how does it relate to the patient and their symptoms and their concerns. You then get an 11 to 14 page report, so a personalized report to that metabolic story. And you get personalized treatment plans. And that is all integrated directly from our platform right onto Fullscript. So easy to upload, assess, and send on to your patients. When we were creating EndoAxis, as I mentioned, we wanted to create a streamlined way to analyze that really complex metabolic hormone story. To do so, we're looking at, we combed through, right, PubMed, and we searched for all of the relationship data between sex hormones and their metabolites. And we came up with ideal ranges based on age and gender, as well as bioidentical hormone use. We're assessing 35 hormone metabolites, and we're looking at those 5 parent hormones, cortisol, progesterone, DHEA, testosterone, and estrogen, as they relate to one another, as they relate to gender and age, as they relate to bioidenticals, and as they relate to their metabolites. So putting a lot of complexity into a streamlined system. And when we did that, we came up with 236 female patterns. I have an asterisk there because there's 4 variations to every female pattern based on cycle regularity and bioidentical hormone use. Because of course, low estrogen in a 22-year-old female is very different than low estrogen in a 62-year-old female. So recommendations, underlying concerns, and even the supplements themselves do alter slightly per pattern based on age. We have 96 male patterns, and we have 14 adrenal patterns. So why are we looking at urine? Well, simply put, when you look at serum, you're looking at a single snapshot point in time. And I'm going to give you a graph that really highlights why that's a concern with hormones. But you're getting a point in time reading versus urine, which, yes, it is a waste, but to be a waste, the hormone had to have been created, it had to have been utilized by the body, and it had to have been processed in a way to create the metabolites that we're seeing. Each metabolite is unique to a different enzyme. So we can reverse engineer those metabolites and that origin story to say, hey, this is that root underlying concern that's driving that hormone imbalance. Again, bioavailable, right, in urine, it's truly what's passing through the tissues, it's those metabolites, and most importantly, it's the daily average. Now, there's always limitations with various ways to test hormones. The 2 big concerns with urine, number 1, sex hormones and cortisol are steroid hormones, right? So they are fat-based. That means that in water, we're only going to see that kind of bioavailable fraction, which is, to me, the more important part. That's what the tissue can actually use. But it's not the protein-bound fraction. That's only captured in the blood. There's also testosterone. So testosterone is subject to an enzyme called UGT2B17. And this is an enzyme deletion that's actually the most common enzymatic deletion in the human genome. It's deleted in about 40% of the general population. And if you don't have the enzyme, you don't excrete testosterone into urine very effectively. So there are other markers on the Dutch test that tell us, yeah, this is a concern. They probably have the UGT. But because testosterone is notoriously underrepresented in urine, we also allow providers to manually enter total testosterone and sex hormone binding globulin from a blood test. So if you have those markers on the intake, have them available with you because you can enter them. As long as they're taken roughly at the same time as that Dutch test, you'll get a good review of the 2 markers as they relate to one another and that full androgen story. So as I mentioned, hormones are bouncy. So when you're taking a single point in time, if you're looking at blood or you're looking at saliva, you're getting 1 marker, 1 point in time. Progesterone is that far left graph there on your screen. Progesterone in women in the luteal phase of the cycle can vary up to 80% in 90 minutes. So a test taken at 8 a.m. versus a test taken at 9:30 a.m. could be vastly different in terms of progesterone reading if you're looking at a blood test. Because progesterone has a short half-life, right? So you're getting that single point in time and hoping to make a good clinical decision off of that blood marker, you're going to be a little limited, right? Same goes with testosterone. Testosterone has a very diurnal rhythm. It's going to elevate most significantly in the morning. Estrogen also has a lot of fluctuation throughout the day, tends to rise most early morning. There's a lot more aromatization that can occur that impacts estrogen as well. So there can be a lot of bounciness throughout the day, depending on inflammation and stress. But for the most part, most of our sex hormones spike in the morning. And that's why when you're doing a blood test, you always want to test in the morning and you want to test fasting because food consumption can increase sex hormone binding globulin. Now, again, you're limited, right? You're limited in your view. And who's doing, actually on that progesterone study, the researchers deduced that to get accurate progesterone in blood, you would have to take 4 measurements throughout the day. Who's going to go into a blood draw center and get poked 4 times? It's not realistic. But when you look at urine, you're seeing daily averages. Each of these purple bands reflects a window of time right before a various test collection on those little Dutch sample cards. So patients are instructed to collect 4 samples throughout the day. The waking sample is collecting all the hormone and cortisol produced before that collection window. So it's all the nighttime accumulation of hormone excreted on that waking sample. And then you do your 2 hours later, your afternoon and your night. So you're really getting that total daily accumulation of hormone to give you the peaks and the troughs as a total daily average, instead of just like a guess to hope you're getting the peak output. But who knows, right? With the blood. Urine, you're getting that daily. And again, urine testing is really complex. You're getting a 6-page report with the Dutch that has all sorts of metabolites, all sorts of dials. It can be overwhelming. So you upload it into EndoAxis and you get an 11-page report that really streamlines that information for you and that patient's individual unique findings. On that first page, you're going to get 2 different pattern numbers. One is their sex hormone pattern, and that's the high-level information, the relationships, right, between estrogen and progesterone, estrogen, testosterone, all the metabolites, additional lab features or findings that you may want to consider, as well as interventions that you may want to employ. Then you also have your adrenal pattern and your findings. The findings are specific to metabolite relationships to one another. So the pattern has the broad relationships. The findings are really metabolite specific, paired to symptoms. So they're the things you do not want to miss, and they're very unique and make that report so specific to your individual patient. You then have the hormone and adrenal insights section, which expands even more upon that information. And then the strategy and analysis portion, which is including all the enzymes involved in why those hormones were produced, why they may be interacting the way they are, all of the environmental factors, nutritional factors, stress factors, right? All the medication factors that can be impacting that patient's specific features and pattern. And then most importantly, we have our products, and the products are near and dear to my heart. As an herbalist, as a practitioner who really loves supporting just the natural biorhythms, number one, was frustrated with the lack of really robust formulations on the market for hormone care, and really was excited to put together formulations that are specific to these unique features, right? That are giving patients what they need without all this excess, right? Because not everyone needs the whole kitchen sink to support their estrogen. Maybe they just need something that supports aromatization, or they just need something that supports their detox. So we're supporting the why. Why is that hormone acting the way it is versus the what, right? Versus the symptom. Pharmacokinetics really do matter when you're blending herbs and minerals together. Minerals are super bulky, and they block and inhibit absorption of a lot of other things. So magnesium and calcium, for example, these are very big, bulky minerals. They block absorption of a lot of stuff, including smaller minerals, as well as aminos and herbs. So when we're blending our products, we're putting the herbs as the star player because they are so powerful. Right? They really have, most herbs have 200 to 300 components, constituents that act on that body, that act on various tissues and help and just increase their medicinal influence. We don't want the minerals to block their action, right? We want them to work synergistically. So we add the minerals more as cofactors. So we're low dosing the minerals to ensure efficacy and power and potency of the herbs and those amino acids. We also are using herbs that are well defined in literature at doses defined to have physiologic impact. In doing so, we came up with 26 uniquely designed formulations to address both female and male health. We also have, or from those 26, right, we have 14 foundational or keystone products, and those are really geared at hormone imbalance, at detox, and at adrenal health. And then we have 12 supportive products that usually are seen as more add-on to increase the efficacy or the potency of either antioxidant potential or other enzymatic imbalance that we're seeing in the report. So it's really specific, again, to the imbalance that's at play for that patient versus throwing everything at the patient. And I want to highlight this most specifically with our detox products. and even more refined to our estrogen detox products, because this is where it can get really overwhelming. Say you have a patient who has high estrogen symptoms and you test them and their estrogens look actually pretty good and progesterone's looking pretty good. But we know we want to detox them. We know they need help because they have very painful periods. They maybe struggle with tenderness or fibrocystic breast. Maybe they struggle with PMS. So we want to support them, but we don't know how. So enter the Dutch test. You're looking at their metabolites. You're seeing that they have some metabolic dysfunction, but it's really in the methyl activity. Everything else seems to be really good. Well, the principles of detox for estrogen follow kind of this premise, right? So just a snapshot here in the corner. We have estrogen, right? This is a fat hormone. It's a cholesterol-based hormone, a steroid. It has to become a water-soluble intermediate. So it goes through phase 1 detox. It gets hydroxylated through CYP enzymes. Those intermediates then go through a second step called phase 2 detox to truly bind and deactivate and become inert, and then bind into bile and excrete out into stool. When you're looking at detox, you always want to work in reverse order. If the gut is not working or you're just reactivating estrogens because of high beta-glucuronidase, start there, because any additional work upstream isn't going to help if you can't clear out the estrogen. So start with the gut and then work backwards. Work at sulfation and then methyl detox, different than methylation, right? Methyl detox. And then phase 1, if and when needed. Quality and form matter, and we don't want to overdo it. We don't want to throw tons of stuff at them if they don't need it, right? So if I were to go onto Fullscript and type in estrogen detox, because I don't know where to start, right? I don't have EndoAxis necessarily quite yet. I'm going to see 761 results. So that's a lot. Where do I even go with that? And most of them are a variation on a theme. You can see a lot of products that have DIM. Not every woman needs DIM. You have a lot of products that have antioxidants that are lovely, but some of our antioxidants can actually inhibit methyl activity and methyl detox. So we want to be careful with those relationships. We don't want to necessarily, if they need methylation, we don't want to just give them a big methyl product like we see in that right-hand corner. That's really for like MTHFR dysfunction. That's for cardiovascular health. That's a big guns methyl product. Maybe we just want methyl detox. We're kind of at a loss. None of these products are just sulfation and methyl detox focused. Enter EndoAxis. We upload the report. We see methyl detox really is the place that we need to focus. And we have our methyl detox product. We're giving you what you need without all the residual, which is really going to enhance your patient outcomes. Now, often in a report, you're going to see more than just a detox blend. Sometimes that's all they need. Sometimes they need a little more. So we start with our foundational blends, but all of our blends grow on one another. So they all enhance efficacy by adding more formulas to it. So instead of like inhibiting or being concerned about interactions with products, all of our products are developed to just continue to enhance outcome as you add 1 or 2 or 3 together in tandem. So you get your product recommendation page, you get your targeted blends, right? The keystone formulas that are really geared at your patient's unique imbalance. You get add-ons. These are optional. They just enhance outcomes. Some of them you could replace or swap out depending on the patient case. You usually are getting a hormone blend, a detox blend, and or an adrenal blend. And of course, you are still the driver. So we are supporting you. We are giving you education. We are giving you insights, but we are not replacing your clinical decision-making. You still have full control over what you choose to add to your patient's cart or not. So in kind of summary, right, with EndoAxis, you're getting personalized recommendations. You're getting them tailored to your patient's unique results and symptoms per test. We have a help center, which is continuing to grow. It has hormone conditions, so you don't have to go search up to date. We have those conditions for you right at a click, right in that user profile. You have detailed analyte review, herbal and mineral research for all of our products, even lifestyle handouts that we continue to grow. You have our products, custom formulations with highest quality sourcing, CGMP certified and in glass, which I really want to emphasize because these are hormone products, right? We're treating hormones. We don't want to have nanoplastics off-gassing onto our cellulose little capsules, right? We want to be really careful because we know we're finding nanoplastics in all sorts of tissues, right? We're finding it in the brain. We're finding it in the gonads. It's linked to infertility. It's linked to endometriosis. We don't want those nanoplastics in our products. So we put our products in glass to ensure efficacy and safety as well. And then you're getting that thorough assessment without all the work, right? We're saving you time and we're enhancing your patient outcomes. So I'm going to pass the baton to our Chief Medical Officer, Dr. Guy Citrin, and he's going to show you how in real time EndoAxis can work in your practice.
Thank you so much, Dr. Bartman. I'll just specify for a moment. One, just out of gratitude, thank you for everybody who's here listening. I know your time is incredibly valuable, and we conceptualized the concept of this roughly about 4 years ago. So I'm the co-founder and chief medical officer. My name is Dr. Citrin, and again, the whole point of doing this was to create what I found one of the most incredibly difficult and nuanced things to do is treat hormone dysfunction, and do it in a way that's really supportive and specific. And what I was finding in the industry, again, just to reiterate, was that so many products are using amazing ingredients, but they're not targeted. So in the advancement in my background originally before medicine was computer systems and engineering, and I found that hormone specifically is a bit of a data problem. And so we are not releasing this technology to the consumer because it's way too complicated. What we've done is we've spent years of development and millions of dollars in this technology, and we're offering it for free. And that is, I think, the biggest gift, is that we don't want to charge for the education, because education shouldn't be something that people charge for, ultimately, in an ideal world. So the entire report that you're going to get when you upload, everything is free. Your account is free, your login is free, the reporting is free, and it's really just a gift to the community to support hormone analysis. Because as a doctor who treats a lot of hormone dysfunction, I have found, one, that the Dutch test is incredibly beautiful in my patient outcomes. And two, I continue to keep learning, like years after years of running this test, how many nuances there are. So now that a technology exists that allows you to kind of narrow in, I find it an incredibly beautiful tool. And just getting it released was such a big feat, a massive technological feat. So I hope you enjoy it. So without further ado, let's talk about a couple case studies. Leah came to me. She was 39 years old. Chief complaints, mainly the big one was ovarian cyst ruptures. She tried birth control. It made everything worse. So she came to me after seeing her OB being like, I don't know what to do. I'm at a complete loss. You're the last person who can help me. I have significant weight gain, puffiness, these ovarian cysts that rupture that hospitalize her typically once a month. She was miserable, 34 to 34 days in length of her menstrual cycle. Her menses were 5 to 7 days. Her symptoms were heavy flow, weight gain, spotting, PMS, cramping, and again, the ovarian cyst ruptures. So typically what I do on all patients is I do blood work and a Dutch test, because I actually like to compare the output versus the excrement. And so it kind of gives me what I like, that total range. For a lot of people, the Dutch test should be sufficient, but again, that baseline testosterone that Liz mentioned might be useful. So blood work revealed a total elevated serum testosterone. So I'm thinking maybe PCOS. Everything else was low to mid normal, everything. Thyroid panel, lipids, CBC, CMP, all the other hormones. I ran everything. I was like, okay, it's probably okay, maybe that's a little bit of a clinical picture, but it's not really telling me anything. So I looked at her Dutch test. DHEA was a little bit low. This is a very good example. If you look at the testosterone, I know it's a little bit small, but if you look at the testosterone, this is a UGT mutation. So testosterone was not flagged here because of that enzyme genetic. So this is inaccuracy. So sometimes when you see a baseline level testosterone, that's not a accuracy. The EndoAxis report will highlight that, so you don't have to guess, and will highlight it to your patients. And then the metabolites of testosterone look more or less normal. Progesterone looked more or less normal. Her estrogen, even having high estrogen symptoms, were low. And then her metabolites on estrogen all looked either low, normal, all within the range. So I looked at this. I was like, I don't really know why this is causing ovarian cyst ruptures. It doesn't look metabolically like there's this massive presentation. Her cortisol picture, again, all look normal. Metabolized cortisol was below the range, but everything else within the actual ranges was normal. Cortisone, and creatine. So the EndoAxis report, this is kind of what it looks like. The first page will indicate the pattern. The pattern number doesn't really mean anything. We just had to actually create patterns to reflect the literature. So she got flagged between her symptom and her Dutch, and it said she's pattern 41. I highlighted the big part to take home here, but it said basically in the top, progesterone was within ovulatory range. Although estrogen is low, their estrogen rise was enough to create ovulation to trigger follicular eruption. So, and then the big take home is with elevated testosterone, because I was able to enter in her serum testosterone into the endo report. So it said with an elevated testosterone and irregular menstrual cycles, there's concern that she fits the PCOS, which I kind of figured from just elevated testosterone. PCOS is a diagnosis of exclusion. Support for this pattern is targeted towards optimizing estrogen synthesis and follicular health. Again, not as enough of an idea of kind of what's going on. So we have this beautiful findings section, excuse me, on page 2 of the report. And specifically, it said this, 16-OH elevation. And this is where I got really excited because it said they have a preference for creating higher 16-OH, which compared to 2-OH. So the beautiful part about EndoAxis is it actually creates ratios between all the metabolites, and it'll pick findings that you might miss to your naked eye. And so it said that with an elevated 16 in comparison to 2-OH, this patient might create ovarian and uterine cysts. So I was very happy because I was looking through all the data. This is the first time that I saw anything that actually correlated to the findings, the symptom of this patient. So the recommendations was, these are the ingredients that lists to support the 3 aspects that we found in this patient's case. And the endo report will illustrate the findings. So it said the ingredients that support these menstrual health irregularities. I'm not going to read all the ingredients, but those are all the ingredients that would be very helpful in therapeutic dosing to support this patient. Ingredients that support healthy androgen levels and follicular activity. Again, those are all the ingredients that would support it. And ingredients that support biliary and GI conjugation, healthy estrogen metabolism, and phase 3 detoxification. Those are all the ingredients that listed. Again, EndoAxis has formulated products that match the therapeutic dosing of these specific ingredients for the pattern of dysfunction that's shown through the endo report. So I put this patient on the 3 supplements, and the puffiness completely resolved after 1 month. She's just started to lose about 1 pound after the first month. Energy went up about 15-20%. Libido went up by about 15-20%. The flow was still heavy. She still had some PMS, although it was a little bit better. But the big finding was no ovarian cyst rupture happened 1 month. And so I was excited. I was like, we're not going to touch anything. Let's keep you going. 3 months after the treatment began, all her symptoms resolved. Puffiness completely resolved. She lost 7 pounds of weight. Energy was through the roof. Libido was through the roof. Cycle normalized. And she had not had an ovarian cyst rupture. PMS completely resolved. So I was incredibly happy with this case. She was super happy. She felt like her life returned back to normal. She wasn't going to the hospital, and she was kind of out of options at that point. So we were very excited for her. Let me talk about another case. This is Allison. Allison presented, she's 41 years old. Chief complaint majorly was PMDD. For those of you who don't know what that is, it's premenstrual dysphoric disorder. And that is really ultimately when they have significant depression and fatigue a week prior to their period. She was, her cycle was varied 24 to 34 days in length. Menses also varied 5 to 10 days in length. All her blood work revealed normal. Functionally, A1C, you could indicate maybe slightly heading into insulin resistance or prediabetes, but not enough of a finding to conclude anything. Vitamin B12 was elevated, but she was taking B12. Everything else was completely normal, right down the middle. So I ran her Dutch. The Dutch test showed, for the most part, everything was kind of in the normal fan dials. I didn't really see anything that was majorly calling. Progesterone was slightly low normal. Estrogen was normal. Testosterone was normal. No GTU mutation, so that's an accurate testosterone. Total DHEA, metabolized cortisol curve. Everything looked like relatively healthy. DHEA, you can say, is a little bit low. The only thing in the progesterone is alpha-pregnenolone was slightly low. Everything else in her estrogen was normal across the board. Like I said, if you look here, almost everything is within the normal ranges in the fan dial. So I ran the endo report, and it said that this patient likely had an ovulatory cycle, but is moderately estrogen dominant due to poor progesterone production. Again, the beautiful part about this is it's going to compare all the ratios for you. So you don't have to calculate the progesterone to estrogen to testosterone or the metabolites. The endo report will do that for you. So estrogen detox is appropriate overall. And this pattern reflects ultimately a corpus luteum deficiency. I didn't highlight that part, but it's in the third pattern, meaning that she may have ovulated, but follicular health is poor. So cycling her on bioidentical progesterone in the luteal phase may be therapeutic, but try with herbs, ultimately, is what it's saying first. So recommendations that said ingredients support menstrual health and regularity. That's her foundational formulation. And this is another thing to note really quick. Our formulations build on each other, so they don't detect from each other. So in the event that you see multiple formulations, those are foundational blends that all support each other, whereas other products may inhibit each other from working. Ingredients that support NERV2, minimizing oxidative potential, and ingredients specifically that support healthy ovulation by targeting the HPO axis. So again, significant PMDD. She was miserable for a week prior. 1 month after treatment began, I put her on those 3 products. Absolutely no change. Still PMDD. She still had heavy flow, swollen, breast tenderness. Results 3 months after treatment began is that all symptoms completely resolved. No more PMS and PMDD. Cycles were completely normal at 28 days. Flow was 5 to 7 days in moderate flow, and no change to supplements. Results 6 months after treatment began is continued benefit. So she was super happy. So what I did was I just reduced her to her baseline formulation that supported, again, the progesterone and follicular health. And as long as I kept her on that blend, I checked in with her, and 9 months after treatment began, she was healthy. So I got her down to basically 1 supplement bottle for continued support and treatment, and 0 symptoms, and everything was healthy. Her cycle was healthy. She was ecstatic. And this is a male case. David presented, and this is an interesting case because a lot of people don't consider the Dutch test for males. The more work that I've done, obviously with endo, I now really do run Dutch for males because it does tell me also a big story. It's not just about serum testosterone or estrogen. Although that's incredibly helpful, there is a lot to be said about how they are metabolizing all their metabolites as well. So David presented as a 44-year-old male. The big thing is that he wanted to have children. So he's not a candidate for testosterone therapy. And so chief complaints was weight gain, low libido, erection issues, fatigue. He wakes up tired, stays tired, had a lot of brain fog, restless sleep, persistent body pains. He came to me already taking Clomid. And so for those of you who don't know, Clomid is a fertility drug typically prescribed to women, but for males, it'll boost their sex hormones. So I ran his blood work. Serum testosterone came at 487. The reference range is 280 to 1100. A lot of functional doctors prefer testosterone above 600 to 900. But he was already on Clomid. He came in before Clomid at around a 220. So he was incredibly low testosterone. He had free and bioavailable, was unremarkable. Sex hormone binding globulin was normal. Ultrasensitive estradiol was under 11.8. So I'll show all those results in here. This is his full blood panel. So FSH and LH are healthy, prolactin's healthy, estrogen's healthy, DHEA is healthy, testosterone, I mean, it's close to 500, it's pretty healthy. Sex hormone binding globulin was really low, so his availability and his testosterone was high. It's right down the middle of the range. It doesn't explain to the degree that he was kind of suffering. So cortisol was high and healthy. So I didn't think anything of it. And I don't really look at blood cortisol to mean anything anyway. So I ran his Dutch, and it showed that the testosterone was low. The DHA production was healthy. His cortisol curve was beautiful, so I didn't see any disruption in adrenals. Estrogen was low, healthy, except the metabolites of his estrogen, of his testosterone and his androgens were healthy, and he was preferencing into 5 beta. If you can see that red marker on the left side, so his estrogens were all low, healthy, normal across the board, no major issues. So I ran the endo report, and it said this pattern reflects hypogonadal activity. Depending on his symptoms or concerns, you would consider addressing androgen health with herbs and minerals that support androgen activity. And the big one was that 5 beta reductase preference was highlighted in the findings section. So it shows that the higher, stronger preference for 5 beta metabolites. And so ultimately what is happening with this patient is that he's taking Clomid, but instead of going into 5 alpha, all his testosterone is going into 5 beta. And the problem is 5 beta doesn't feel like testosterone. So a stronger 5 beta preference might be due to medications, or it could be genetic. So a strong 5 beta preference may decrease the androgenic potential of their testosterone and DHEA, which means that we're boosting up his sex hormones. He's not a candidate for testosterone. So ultimately, what do? And it said the report, and it also will call out the report of what drug he's using to affect that 5 beta preference. So it's all listed in the report itself. So the report listed ingredients that supported the HPG access, mitochondrial health, androgen response, and synthesis. Those are the ingredients listed. And ingredients that support phase 2 and phase 3 detox to support his full hormonal cascade. So it was 2 products ultimately that match the exact ingredients and the specificity of what he needs. And a result at 1 month after treatment was he was about 20 to 30% across the board, which I was very happy with because it started to show that his body was starting to respond. 3 months after treatment, and this is kind of what we're seeing across the board, is these products are really good at around the 3-month range. 3 to 6 months is kind of what we're recommending the product should be placed at. So 3 months after treatment began, energy was completely normal. Libido was very healthy. Erection quality was healthy mornings and through any sexual activity he was having. He started to exercise. He started to finally lose weight, gain muscle. Body pains reduced by about 40%. 6 months after treatment, kept him still on the same 2 products in full resolution of symptoms. With that? Oh, somebody was talking. Okay. So anyway, so that's our last case study. He had full resolution of symptoms, and ultimately I just kept him on the 2 supplements because they were working so beautifully. So without further ado, this is back to Dr. Jeff Glad. I hope you enjoyed and saw the utility of using endo.
Yeah, that's incredible. Thank you so much. So now I want to give a quick overview of using Fullscript now to partner in delivering your EndoAxis treatment plans. For those of you who aren't familiar with Fullscript, I mean, we are the platform to enable the practice of whole person care, the leading technology platform that allows providers to optimize, dispense, and manage personalized treatment plans with healthcare's best supplements. We now are also delivering the whole person care cycle on the platform, where not only are we allowing you to have access to a breadth of high quality products, the ingredients that were formulated that we've already spoken about, having adherence and engagement tools on behalf of you and your treatment plans to your patients, but also helping you with some of the context, like the Dutch test and the results of those Dutch tests. So some of the major value props to consider when using Fullscript: seamless care delivery. I mentioned at the outset our focus on workflow efficiency. We have up to 30 EHR integrations, and the integration in EndoAxis is also one of these workflow efficiencies that allow you to practice well and efficient where you're practicing today. We have the industry-leading supplement quality program, which I'll talk about a little bit on the next slide. I mentioned a focus on adherence and outcomes. So highly personalized plans, app-based experience for the patients drive a better engagement and compliance to long-term sticking to that treatment plan that you're writing for them. Plenty of clinical decision support. So a large library of templates, evidence-based recommendations, over 150 articles of professionally written patient resources that you can attach those treatment plans to add further education to your patients. And then a financial benefit. And that financial benefit can be to your patients by giving them a discount on their Fullscript account and splitting that as part of revenue to support your practice. Most practitioners are doing some blend of that. So, my message to my patients is, very high quality, a distribution channel that we can also trust, as well as, being able to discount this for you so that you're able to save on high quality treatment plans. Our quality program starts with one-to-one relationships with our suppliers like EndoAxis, working with these manufacturers so that we have control over the purity and the potency. We have our own testing program where we're now taking bottles off of our distribution center shelves, sending them to a third party to further prove that what is on the label is actually in those capsules that your patients are taking. And then our distribution centers are top of the line, NSF audited across the country. So your patients are able to get these products within a few days. The experience is world-class. So that's really what we've built this platform on, is easily being able to create a patient account, first name, last name, email address, or automatically integrated through your EHR. You've got access to the workflow in terms of the templates, the resources. And again, if you use our templates or build your own, it's a one-click experience to create treatment plans. On the patient side, they're able to work on any device. They can see, they can actually now upload their entire supplement list with a barcode scanner that gives them access to, the full NIH database of supplements, whether they're sourcing them from Fullscript or not. That's then queued up for you to assess, is their treatment plan, what they're taking, what you feel like they should be taking. They can review that plan online. They can check out on a HIPAA secure platform, set up auto refill to be able to stay on their treatment plan for as long as you recommend. You can now order the Dutch test in the Fullscript platform. So again, workflow efficiency by having treatment planning for supplementation, educational resources, but also testing is now inside of the Fullscript platform. The catalog, you can browse through over 20,000 different products. You can do that through filters if there are certain third-party certifications, allergens, some of the ingredients and formulations that Liz talked about. You can search for those and find the products that match. And then you've got labs also in the platform. In addition to just the Dutch test, there's also National Quest account and a number of other specialty labs. So I want to talk about this two-platform, one seamless experience, which is allowing you now to easily connect your free EndoAxis account with your free Fullscript account and be able to practice now in delivering exactly what Dr. Bartman and Dr. Citrin talked about. You can order the Dutch test on Fullscript. Patients then make that purchase, have that kit sent from one of our distribution centers. Once those results are done, and you can follow along with patient received the kit, patient set the test in, know when that test is going to be resulted, upload that PDF into EndoAxis, and then review the report and be able to take those ingredients and the products that are being recommended to support your patient and put those into a treatment plan for your patient. And I'll show you that in a quick video here. So I'll switch to video. Well, I'm probably better off starting from the beginning here. So if you add a patient, really important to make sure you add the email address so it matches their Fullscript account. You've got now the treatment plan building inside of EndoAxis going immediately into Fullscript. Upload that PDF result, answer a few questions about the patient. You can see the report there. That report then turns around very quickly. You can open up that report and you can see here, let me back up a sec. You can see both the hormone review that Dr. Bartman talked about. You can see the formulations based on the evidence-based ingredients that are recommended. And then you'll easily be able to review those products inside of EndoAxis, make selections that you feel are appropriate for that patient, click on the product check mark, and then send that to Fullscript. And what you'll see next is you now immediately are into the treatment plan for Fullscript. The dosing is populated for you based on the recommended dosing schedule. And now the patient is able to receive this treatment plan and make that order on any device that they, whether they're using a computer or whether they're using a phone. I'll go back into the slide deck here. And what you'll see in Fullscript is the treatment plan. If there are other products you're recommending as part of, blood testing or other areas you've talked about with this patient, you're going to see the entire ingredient intake at the bottom of your treatment plan. That allows you to make sure that you're not going to overdo a certain ingredient, or you're not going to, have a concern between two different herbs. All of that then is in your Fullscript treatment plan prior to sending off to the patient. Next steps. We have the QR codes here that allow you to open your free Fullscript account. You can view the EndoAxis products that are in the catalog today by checking out the QR code here. And I want to thank Dr. Bartman and Dr. Citrin, but I want to jump into the Q&A. So we've got about 13 minutes for Q&A. I've got a number of them queued up here, so I'll make sure it looks like you're both off of mute. Thoughts on combining Dutch with genetic testing? So specifically talking about phase 1 through 3 detox and aromatization specifically, do you feel there's a marginal benefit to understanding where they might be from a genetic perspective, or do you think that's adequately explained by looking at the metabolites alone in the Dutch test?
Liz, I'm going to introduce you to this in a second, but I just wanted to say, yes, the future concept of EndoAxis, just for everybody's understanding, is that we want to be a fully explained endocrine solution. So what we are going to do ultimately is bring in a couple things like thyroid, some serum, genetics, the whole thing. We are trying to build a full explanation, including the Dutch and genetics. But Dr. Bartman is a genetics genius, so I want her to explain a little bit on the genetics front so you all understand what's going to happen soon.
Thank you. Yes. Yeah, great question. We are definitely building out a nutrigenomics and functional genetic report that's going to match along with the Dutch test, really to explain so that we know, right, the environmental impacts and how much or how little to emphasize, like, hey, this nutrient's really needed, or this environmental factor should be really avoided or not, right? Or this hormone needs to be used in moderation or monitored closely. So I think genetics really plays a big role in that and can help enhance our outcomes and our suggestions and treatment recommendations, as well as patient compliance. What I will say about genetics and genomics, right? It's functional expression. So, just because you have a polymorphism doesn't mean it's going to express. And just because you have a dysfunction on a Dutch doesn't mean you have a polymorphism that's going to match it. So you really do need in real time the lab results to pair with the genomics, right? To pair with those polymorphisms. So I think there's a perfect bridge there, a perfect marriage of being able to see, here's their risk factors, here's how they present in real time, and here's now what we know to really target with even more precision, right? The nutrients, the environment, the nutrition to help support that patient. So yes, so there's definitely merit to it. But the metabolites alone show you more of what's in real time happening. And that's where you always want to start, regardless of their polymorphisms. So.
Excellent. All right. Next question. My biggest challenge is taking the test for perimenopausal women with cycles that are all over the map and inconsistent. What is the best way to test? And do you have a cycle mapping first? So a couple questions around inconsistent cycles.
Absolutely. Yes. It can be super tricky, right, with perimenopausal women and women with like PCOS or women who just have a lot of cycle irregularities who are younger, right? Cycle mapping is awesome. And I would suggest if the patient can, that they do a cycle map with Dutch Complete. So you do want the Dutch Complete still with it. But that way you're taking the guesswork out of capturing the mid-luteal phase of the cycle. You know exactly when progesterone peaked, and that's what we want to compare when we're looking at ratios. So the cycle map really is a helpful tool to add on with perimenopausal evaluation. That said, it is very expensive to do the two together because you need a full Dutch Complete plus a full cycle map, and that adds up with that with those two reports. So if there's any concern about like, I know I definitely want to capture the mid-luteal, but we don't necessarily want the cycle map piece. What you can do, you're only charged for the Dutch test you send back to the lab. You can send as many Dutch kits to your patient as you want. So when you're ordering a Dutch test, you can say, I want to send 5 kits to my patient. They're not charged for all 5. What I then have my patients do is say, I suspect the earliest my cycle might come is, this day. Count 5 days back from the earliest you think your cycle will start. And then the longest it seems to be is this day. Count 5 days back from the longest it could be. And take your test, so start at the 5 days before the earliest it could be, dry them and freeze them. And you can take as many as you want. I usually recommend every 3 to 5 days, take another test until the period starts. Then go back to the freezer, take the test out that was closest to that 5 to 7 days before the period started. And then that's the one that will get charged. And that's the one that they'll run. So that it's a little more cumbersome, but it does save a little money. And it does give accurate results. That way, you're getting ideally kind of that 5 to 7 days before next menstrual period. It's a mid-luteal. The other option would be doing some of like the femtech that's out there now. Pros and cons to them. I don't know how accurate they track, but there are things like the Mira app. And I know, Guy, you might have some more experience with that. But you can track, like they're actually promoting for perimenopausal support. You can track LH, you can track your estradiol and your progesterone, and you can take your Dutch test on the day that matches with when your peak levels are on that Mira app.
Yeah, I would say that that app has actually been really helpful for a lot of my patients, and it's been accurate. So if they are ovulating, that's typically the best time to try. And sometimes it takes a couple months to get an accurate Dutch in, when you're monitoring. So I also recommend ovulation strips and all that stuff to see, and basal temperature and cervical mucosa and all that stuff. So hopefully you can figure out if they are ovulating at the time with basal temperature, and if they want to do the fem apps, and you can do a couple Dutch tests, hopefully gauging the 5 to 7 day mark. So it's frustrating, but to be honest, it's incredibly helpful when you do get it because of how much you're getting in that perimenopausal understanding of what's going on with their hormones, so you can support them. So although it's a pain, I think it's worth it for them, because otherwise, as Liz mentioned, the serum testing is not going to be enough of a story to tell them what's going on.
And I will say this too, if they haven't had a period for 6+ months, go ahead and test at random.
Yeah.
Got it. All right. This attendee asked, do either of you have a case study for unexplained infertility and utilizing the Dutch test to help them in infertility?
I don't think we have a case study yet for it. But there's a lot of people on this call, so if you guys have a case study, please mail it in. I don't think I have a case study yet for unexplained fertility, but we are getting a lot of case studies kind of in the mail now with people using endo and their progress. And so we're going to be launching an endo case study almost every week. We might miss some weeks because they take a little bit of time to record, but most weeks you can expect a case study. And if you join to the platform, you'll get those free case studies, and you'll get an inside email every single week. And we're going to be indicating more and more case studies. So there's a lot of education that we didn't mention on the endo platform. When you log in, we built probably the biggest educational platform I've ever seen in endocrinology. Every explanation of metabolite, condition, workups, all of it. So, and it's all free. So yeah, log into endoaxis.com and you'll find a lot of information and blogs and case studies, and everything's yeah, we want to really be a hub for endocrinology again. So.
Excellent. This one I can take really easy. Are you, let's see, going to make the EndoAxis available to the Rupa platform as well? So EndoAxis is available to any PDF Dutch result. So if you're using Rupa to order your Dutch tests, go into Rupa, take that PDF, upload it to EndoAxis. You'll get just the same experience, same treatment planning experience over on Fullscript. So that's no problem. All right, back to clinical questions. Does EndoAxis review all medications and supplements to determine effect on hormones and adrenals?
No, not all of them. Yeah, so the short answer is no. We mention all medications and supplements that could impact a given pattern that presents itself on a report. So if there's like, for example, really low testosterone, we're going to mention all of the possible contributors to that low testosterone, be it synthesis issues, medication issues, supplement issues, adrenal issues, mitochondrial factors. So we really outline it there, but we're not yet factoring in like every medication or every supplement at this point. Now, I think we want to grow this, and we do want to take in more and more factors as we grow. But at this point, we're just looking at bioidentical hormones and birth control.
Got it. Next question. Does EndoAxis take the cortisol metabolism into account for any thyroid determination?
Yes. Yep. So the adrenal pattern really can tell us a lot. So when you're looking at metabolism of cortisol metabolism is directly dependent on free T3 available in the liver. And when you're looking at like free cortisol being higher and metabolized cortisol being lower, that can be an indication that free T3 in the liver in particular is not robust, right? That they're not getting the activity there. And so that pulls out as a pattern that says, this could actually be an issue with thyroid. And then you might see in a report other variables that might indicate that thyroid is a problem as well. And so you can start seeing, like, if you're seeing thyroid pulled, time after time, then it's like, oh, okay, I need to check in on their thyroid, or, oh, I know that they are on thyroid. Maybe we need to make sure that it's being utilized correctly. Now, there's other reasons why free cortisol might be higher than metabolized cortisol. And we do mention those on our report as well, and take in other variables that could suggest, oh, this actually may be more of a compensation state, a mitochondrial dysfunction, or again, a thyroid disorder.
I'm just going to add to that for a second. When you guys see the report, you're going to see the 11 to 14 page report is so nuanced, and it's all patient specific. None of that is static information. So the entire report is patient specific. You will see how detailed some of the stuff is in terms, and then there's a full strategy and analysis section that will break down all of these things to give you further insight into the patterns and what's happening. And so, yeah, check it out. I think you guys will really appreciate how detailed the report can be.
Excellent. All right. We've got 2 minutes left. I've got one last question. As a compounding pharmacist, does EndoAxis ever recommend bioidentical hormone replacement therapy to be compounded for select patients, particularly in menopausal patients?
Yes. Yeah. So we'll mention it. We don't talk about dosing strategies. We just say, this is definitely a strong candidate for BHRT. And then we do give like strategic dose ranges based on literature, with low and high ranges defined by where we know certain parameters that can be measured, like bone density and bone health, kind of your goals for, hey, to optimize bone health, this is the bare minimum estrogen we want to see. This is, the higher end for safety and efficacy, but you could go higher based on response to therapy. So we kind of give you like guidelines, but we don't give you dosing. But we do say when it would be well indicated. Mm-hmm.
All right. Well, there's still a number of questions, but don't fret that both the EndoAxis team and the Fullscript team are on it. We'll make sure and try to get responses back to you. The webinar will be hosted on the fullscript.com/webinars website. So please check that out, share it with colleagues. But Dr. Bartman, Dr. Citrin, always great to hang out with you. This was excellent, and appreciate everybody's attendance. Thank you.